Welcome back to Vuln Vibes. In this episode, we are going to talk about new Fluent Bit flaws, expose cloud to RCE, and stealthy infrastructure intrusions.
Yeah, and this isn't just another routine disclosure. When we start talking about core infrastructure, there are very few things as foundational as your telemetry pipeline.
Absolutely. We're doing a deep dive into a report from Security, and it details five pretty critical vulnerabilities in Fluent Bit.
Mm-hmm.
And for our audience, the security architects, the IR folks deep in the cloud, Fluent Bit is everything. It's that lightweight agent, the thing that's become the nervous system for logs and metrics across Kubernetes, across massive cloud deployments.
It is, by definition, the source of truth for observability.
Exactly.
And what Security found, well, it details a potential chain of exploitation that goes right for that source of truth. The implications here are just huge.
Because it's not just about getting a shell.
No, not at all. Successful exploitation leads to spelf. We're talking RCE, off bypass, DOS, and this very specific, very scary ability to manipulate logs and telemetry.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we're not discussing a typical web application RCE where you get in and then, try to run your bash history.
Right.
These vulnerabilities enable an attacker to compromise the agent and, at the same time, blindfold the blue team by erasing the evidence of the breach through the exact same mechanism they used to get in.
It just fundamentally shatters the principle of log immutability. Fluent Bit is deep inside the operational fabric, right? It's gathering the data that feeds your SIEM, your forensics, your whole security posture.
And if an attacker gets a foothold here,
They can run their code, disrupt services, and basically burrow deeper into the environment, all while manipulating the data to look like nothing's wrong.
and we should talk about the requirement here, which is network access to the Fluent Bit instance. Now, that sounds like a high bar, but is it really?
In a modern container environment?
Yeah.
Not really. Think about it. Fluent Bit is often a daemon set or a sidecar. It's sitting on the same network plane as tons of other services.
So a compromise in one pod gives you a line of sight to the logging agent for the entire node.
Precisely. And that's when the chain of compromise begins. The researchers laid it out so clearly. An attacker executes their payload via Fluent Bit and then, immediately starts the cleanup.
And by cleanup, we mean erasing entries, injecting fake but plausible telemetry.
Yeah, burying the real alerts in a mountain of noise. You're effectively turning the monitoring system against the defender.
Yeah.
You just can't trust the evidence anymore.
And we should pause here because this isn't like a one-off thing. There's a precedent.
There is. We just saw the linguistic lumberjack vulnerability. That was CVE 2024-4323, which Tenable detailed.
Right. That one targeted the built-in HTTP server.
And it led to the same kind of outcomes, DOS, info disclosure, or RCE. It shows a pattern of, historical security shortcomings in these auxiliary functions of the agent.
It really emphasizes that the attack surface of the telemetry agent itself needs constant, rigorous auditing, not just the data it's processing.
It's a consistent risk. You have this agent in a high-trust position doing a complex job, and when its little-known helper components fail, the consequences are severe.
This brings us to the core technical payload. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down the mechanics of the 5 identified vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Let's start with the one that leads straight to RCE, the path traversal.
Right, so that would be CVE 2025-129972. It's a path traversal that abuses how Fluent Bit handles its output paths. The main issue is unsanitized tag values.
So Fluent Bit uses tags to route logs, and if an attacker can control the input that generates that tag,
They can control the tag value, and if that value contains the classic .traversal sequence,
the agent will just write a file outside its intended log directory.
exactly. And that gives you an incredibly powerful exploit primitive. The ability to write or overwrite arbitrary files on disk is, it's catastrophic.
You could tamper with logs, obviously, but the real prize is RCE, overwriting config files, maybe even binaries.
A clear path to persistence and vervesk on the node, all from a simple input validation failure.
Okay, so that's a huge file system compromise. Now, what about the second RCE vector, the one that's container-specific?
That's CVE 2025-112970, a stack buffer overflow, specifically in the Docker metrics input plugin, the indocker plugin.
And the trigger mechanism here is almost funny. It's creating containers with ridiculously long names.
It sounds simple, right? But it's about memory management. When the plugin processes container names, it allocates a fixed size buffer on the stack.
But if the name is longer than the buffer,
The excess data overflows and overwrites adjacent data on the stack, potentially the function's return address.
which is the classic path to RCE. You divert the execution flow to your own code.
And even if you fail to get RCE, the overflow corrupts the stack, the agent seg faults, and you've got a denial of service.
So you either own the service or you silence it. Nasty.
Mm-hmm. Now, moving away from code execution, we hit the off bypass. That's CVE 2025-12969.
This one targets the InForward plugin, right, for receiving logs from other Fluent Bit instances.
It does, and the vulnerability is just a missing check. It's supposed to look for the security.users configuration to authenticate incoming connections.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. So any attacker who can reach the instance can just open a connection and start blasting raw, unfiltered logs straight into the agent.
So that's the vector for flooding the CM. You create a denial of detection by just overwhelming the system with noise.
Exactly. You weaponize data volume against the defender, the real alerts get buried.
Okay, so the final two flaws are all about log integrity itself.
Right. This is about trust. Let's look at CVE 2025-12978, which is a tag spoofing vulnerability. Tags are everything in Fluent Bit. They decide where a log goes.
And there's a logic flaw in the matching. What's wild about this one is how little effort it takes.
It's incredible. The researchers found you can spoof a trusted tag by guessing only the first character of the tag key.
Just the first character, not the whole thing.
Just the first character. It suggests a really fundamental failure in the parsing logic. If you can spoof the tag, you can bypass filters and, more importantly, inject malicious records that look like they're coming from a trusted internal service.
That is deeply, deeply concerning for forensics. If you can't trust the tag, you can't trust the log's origin.
And finally, there's CVE 2025-12977. This one's about straight-up log corruption. Again, it's improper input validation of tags from user-controlled fields.
So what kind of corruption? Is it just garbled text?
No, it's more structural. An attacker can inject new lines, control characters, and just break the log's expected format.
So downstream parsers, Logstash or whatever, they just choke on it.
They fail, or they misinterpret the data. The end result is that you have a massive chunk of your audit data that's basically worthless because its structural integrity is gone.
Wow. So across all 5 of these, the risk surface is just huge, from memory corruption to basic logic flows.
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the immediate action for every security professional listening is, well, it has to be patching. This is an immediate remediation situation.
The good news is that there are fixes. The vendor did a coordinated disclosure with CertCC, and the patches are in versions 4.1.1 and 4.0.12.
Right, they were released pretty quickly. And we've seen major players underscore the urgency. AWS, for example, was part of the disclosure and has been urging customers to update.
And when a major cloud provider says to patch a core agent like this, you listen.
You do, but patching is just table stakes. The researchers also gave some really solid defense-in-depth recommendations that go beyond just updating.
Things everyone should be doing anyway, really.
Exactly. So first, they say, avoid using dynamic tags for routing whenever possible.
Because that's the input vector for the path traversal and the tag spoofing. Static routing just shrinks that attack surface.
Right. Second, lock down your output paths and destinations. Explicitly prevent tag-based path expansion. Don't let the agent write to arbitrary places based on log input.
Makes perfect sense.
Then there's environmental hardening. Mount Fluent bytextris and your config files as read-only.
So even if an attacker gets RCE, they can't easily modify the config to get persistence or exfiltrate data.
It blocks that next step. And finally, the most basic one that gets missed all the time. Run the service as a non-root user.
Standard security hygiene, but absolutely critical. It's your last line of defense against privilege escalation. So what does this all mean? The critical takeaway for me is that this whole vulnerability set, it targets the very layer that's supposed to give you visibility into a compromise. By hitting Fluent Bit, attackers are targeting the integrity of your digital evidence. They can become functionally invisible by actively manipulating the telemetry stream.
The implications for incident response and forensics are profound. The core assumption you have, that the audit trail is reliable, is now fundamentally challenged in these environments. It's not just about system takeover. It's about compromising trust in the data itself.
It really forces a shift in how we think about securing the logging pipeline.
It does. You have to treat the agent itself as a high-value, high-risk target that needs its own hardened perimeter.
So that leaves us with a final thought.
Yeah, a final thought for you to chew on. Given our reliance on log integrity for audit trails and forensics, how must security teams fundamentally adjust their logging and telemetry verification strategies? maybe things like side channel monitoring or cryptographic log signing, when the logging agent itself becomes the primary vector for the attack and for the destruction of evidence.